mayhem, rape, crime, and that's just the presidential elections. And the rest of it just goes. I mean, honestly, before I left for Montana, the big thing on the news was how a boy, I can't call him a man, a boy got 3 months in prison for raping a young lady behind a dumpster, an unconscious young lady behind a dumpster. And his act of taking her innocence was only worth 3 months. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? As we look out into the world, you see everything that's going on. It makes you wonder, what exactly is going on? Who's in control? Who's running the ship? And when I left for Montana, I did so with all this garbage in my mind. Not only that, but also wrestling with my own demons, so to speak. I was tired, I was worn out. You know, you come to realize when you're on vacation how much you really do need a vacation. And though I can't say that driving 3,500 miles in the space of a week is necessarily a vacation, that when you spend that much time in a car, you have a lot of time to talk to God.
Amen.
And as we were driving Bethany to Montana, Amy and I were extremely conflicted. You see, for those of you who are empty nesters, right, you understand what I'm saying. For those of you that still have little ones at home, you will kind of understand what I mean. See, Bethany is the youngest of our 3 children. The other 2 moved out. Corey joined the Marine Corps long ago, got out and stayed in Arizona. My middle child, went to school in Arizona, so she and my brother spent some time together. But Bethany was the completion of my family, so to speak. She was the completion of our biological family. When Amy and I got married, she wanted 6 kids. I wanted 2. We compromised at 3. And Bethany was the answer to a prayer. We didn't feel complete until Bethany was born. And it's like, okay, this is right. This is the completion. No more, no more. And so when she graduated high school last year, we came to understand our role of parents is changing. And it was with a heavy heart that we drove to Montana. And it was hard for us. And I love my children all. But Bethany was my shadow. And so, as a father, a very overprotective father, the thought of leaving my child in Bozeman it scared me. So as we're driving to Montana, and I'm wrestling with all these things, and I'm wrestling with what now, what next, and all these other things. We start getting to, it was funny, we drove through Nevada, it wasn't too exciting. Nevada's flat like California. We then began the next stage journey, going to Idaho. Idaho is all cornfields. Amy's upset, 400 miles to drive through Idaho, and not one stupid potato scene. And all the cornfields, and we're driving, but then we get into the Tetons, just before you get into Montana. Nothing but pine trees. Gorgeous. And then we get into Montana, and we start making the ascent up the hill that takes you through Yellowstone into Bozeman. Now, I've shared with you in the past, I love the mountains. And it's in the mountains that I feel closest to God. As the wind blows through the pine trees, and I close my eyes, and nothing, maybe it's because the cell phone gets no reception up there. I can hear God. I can hear God as plainly as I'm talking to you now. And so for, maybe if I lived in the mountains, the desert would be that way for me, but it's not. I'm a desert dweller, so I love the mountains. And so we're driving up through the mountains, and I hear God speaking to me. As I look upon the mountains, and we pass by this one mountainside, and the waterfall's coming down into the stream, and there's the stream that follows the road, the highway, all the way up to Bozeman, and it's, people out there fly fishing and stopping and having picnics. It's gorgeous. And you understand that there are other colors in God's creation besides brown. more than just one color. It could be red and pink and even blue in some places. So we're driving and I'm looking at these mountains and I hear God keep saying to me, be still and know that I'm God. Be still and know that I'm God. And something happens when I'm up in the mountains. Everything else is for God. My troubles, my trials, my tribulations, they all go away. It's just God and I. And it's not as if, but what's taking place is I'm dwelling in God's presence.
Amen.
Well, we turn on the TV. And up there, they have to borrow news. And while we were traveling around, because Salt Lake City is one of the largest towns in the area between Nevada, Idaho, Montana, and Utah. Salt Lake City's it. So you have to watch their news. We're in Idaho, we're watching Salt Lake City news. And of course, their news begins with all those things that, the international stuff, the presidential elections, what's going across, happening overseas. And then they talk about California burning. All the states we went to, the big news was California's burning, California's on fire, California's this. But their local news, this is what cracked me up. The big leadoff for Salt Lake City in their news, their local news, was they spent about 10 minutes talking about how this grain silo, which had been standing for 50 years, was going to be demolished. And they donated 10 minutes to talking to people who watched the demolition crew blow the thing up. That's news. But as I'm watching this, dwelling in the presence of God, the things that are going on in the world, the problems that are going on, different perspective. Because now the question of what's really going on is answered. See, we have to understand something. God's in control.
Yes.
God's sovereign.
Yes.
Amen? There ain't nothing that happens in this world that God doesn't know. There ain't nothing that happens in this world that God hasn't foreordained.
All right.
See, God's in control. The devil can bluster and he can boast, but he's a defeated foe. God's plan has been worked out since before the dawn of time,
Amen.
and it's going to be completed.
Yeah.
Be still and know that I'm God. Being able to dwell in the presence of God brings peace.
Yeah. Amen.
Psalms 46. Psalm 46. Psalm 46, verse 1. God is our refuge and strength.
Amen.
Let me just put your finger on that verse right now. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, as we get into the reading and the preaching of your word, Lord, let it be your words which I speak and not my own. Let it be your wisdom and not man's. And Lord, I pray for those that are hearing. I pray for their ears, for their mind, for their heart. May they capture and embrace what you have for them today. And Lord, may your Spirit guide them through this journey, giving them a boldness and faith. And that, Lord, may they come walking away with an edification, with a strength, with an encouragement, and if necessary, Lord, a conviction. But Lord, let them be blessed in the hearing of the word. Let it take fruit, let it bear fruit. And I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble. That's meant to bring you peace. You see, in this psalm, we're going to learn 4 very important things that God has for us. They're meant to give us peace, to give us encouragement. And especially, as we read Psalm 46, we see a mirror of what's going on in the world today. God's not caught by surprise. So confident and so powerful, so supremely sovereign is God that he lays it all out for the devil to read himself.
Yes.
Here's my battle plan. This is how I'm going to beat you. So when we read Scripture, God gives it to us as an encouragement. He reveals himself to us, and he encourages us in the reading. Psalm 46, he wants to encourage us in this first and foremost, that God is our refuge. And so important is that idea that he says it 3 times in the psalm alone. Verse 1, verse 7, verse 11. Refuge. God is my refuge. God is my refuge. God is my dwelling place. Why? Because dwelling in God. You see, we dwell in God. And when we dwell in God, we can have a supernatural peace that we can't have outside of God. And to dwell in God's refuge, it's not like some game preserve where animals wander in and out through broken fences. No, it's meant to conjure up in your eyes a fortress. A fortress. You see, back in the olden days, back in the medieval days and beyond, a fort was constructed by which they could protect the land around it. And when invading armies would come, the populace, the peasants, and all the workers around would go into this fort and they would shut the doors, and knights and soldiers would be on top of the ramparts to protect the fort. And while these people were inside the fort, they would be provided for. You see, they would store. You see, you couldn't just go in there and hang out because sieges could last up to months and even years. So you had to make sure that there was provision within the fortress to provide for not just your daily needs, but for your monthly, your yearly needs. And when you dwell in the refuge of the Lord, understand this, his walls are high. Amen. The devil can only roar and boast, but he can't break. And while you remain in that refuge, while you remain in his care, his protection, he provides for you. Yes. He sustains you. That's what he means by my Lord is my refuge and my strength, a very present help in trouble. You see, we think we come to Christ, we are saved by faith, and then we have to just get through this life in the hopes that we survive it. And that's not what God says at all in his word. God says, you come to me, you dwell in me, and I will be your God forever. Amen. He never leaves your side. So we dwell in his presence. There's nothing that's going on outside the fence that we need to worry about. Make him your dwelling place. Amen. And then he goes on to say, verse 2, therefore we will not fear, though the earth should change. We shall not fear, though the world should change. Because it's going to change. I've been on this planet for over 50 years now, and I've seen a lot of change in those 50 years. Yes. Some of you have been around a little bit longer, some of you not as long, but it's changed a lot in that time span, hasn't it? Yes. And though the mountains slip into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains quake at its swelling cry, verse 4, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy dwelling place of the Most High. Amen. You see, this is a foreshadowing of the New Jerusalem. And the New Jerusalem, if you remember Revelation, New Jerusalem comes out from the heavens, and it's the dwelling place of Jesus Christ as he rules and reigns there during the millennial reign. Amen. And it is said that God dwells among us in this New Jerusalem. But here's the truth for the believer, those who have a faith now. That's not a time to come, that's a time that is now. Amen. Because Jesus is giving you his Spirit and imparted his Spirit into you. The New Jerusalem, in that sense, is you. God dwells in you, around you. Amen. Like I've said before and quoted the psalmist David, whether I make my bed in heaven or my bed in hell, you are there. Where can I go where your Spirit is not already there? It goes on to say, God is in the midst of her. She will not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. So God will be your refuge, and he will be in your midst. 2 wonderful promises, huh? Amen. That's important to know. Because we mistakenly believe subconsciously that we can move around. You know what hell is? Hell is not the absence of God. It's your inability to perceive God. That's what makes hell terrible. The Bible says God's in hell. The presence of God's Spirit's in hell. The people who are there can't sense it. Hell is not being able to sense God. To not be in His presence. To be in His glory. Forget about the brimstone and all the other stuff. That's just fluff. It's missing the presence of God. And in the presence of God, this is what I love. In verse 5, she will not be moved. It doesn't matter what's going on outside. It doesn't matter if there's an earthquake in Italy. It doesn't matter what's happening out over here. The person who finds their dwelling in God can't be shaken. Can't be moved. Amen? Amen. Verse 6, the nations made an uproar, the kingdoms tottered. He raised his voice and the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. See, there it goes again. And this is the thing I want you to see. Verse 7, the Lord of hosts. This is repeated again in verse 11. The Lord of hosts. God is our refuge. God dwells in our midst. And the commander of the angel armies stands at the ready to unleash all of heaven for you. Think about that for a second. That the very angels are waiting for dispatch for you. Well, Psalm 91, He will give His angels charge over you. Isn't that the one that the devil used to tempt Jesus in the desert? Absolutely. Remember the story in Chronicles where Jerusalem is surrounded? Hezekiah is the good king. He's surrounded, Jerusalem's surrounded, and Assyria's got them right where they want them. And the prophet Isaiah, I believe it was, he can see what's going on. And he tells Isaiah, who's scared out of his wits, be still. Be still. And the aide, and my paraphrase says, well, look at the Assyrian armies. It's a mighty army. They've got Jerusalem surrounded. It's just a matter of time before they conquer Jerusalem. And so the prophet prays, let him see what I see. And he opens his eyes, and what does he see? He sees the angels all around Jerusalem, ready to do God's bidding on the behalf of the Israelites. That same Lord of hosts is prepared to empty out heaven for you. Amen. Absolutely. So He's our refuge and our stronghold. He dwells in our midst. He's prepared to command the armies and empty heaven for your behalf. Finally, verse 8. Come, behold the works of the Lord, who has wrought desolation in the earth. He makes wars to cease and the end of the earth, to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two. He burns the chariot with fire. The will of God is undeniable and unavoidable. Understand, everything we see going on is in accordance to God's sovereign plan. Amen. Jesus Christ is coming again, and when He does, He's coming to judge the nations. Amen? And that's what this is talking about. That for His glory's sake, for His exaltation's sake, that He's coming to judge the nations. When we look outside and we think, oh, this is going on, this is going on, this is going on, understand that's going to be judged. Yeah. There's nothing that escapes His notice. So we shouldn't despair, and we shouldn't be worried about these things going on, because the righteous judge is going to come and judge the nations in righteousness. Amen? And so what the psalmist is saying is this. Verse 10. Know that I am God. Know that I am God. He's not saying know God here. He's saying, I want you to know your God through experience and witness. That God is prepared. You see, God's not a God far off. He's a God near. And God acts on the supernatural. He's supremely natural. The coin of phrase. And He waits to just pour out forth supernaturally on your behalf. And He gives this to us as a promise. I will be a refuge. I will be in your midst. I will act, and I will judge the nations, so that you will know that I am God, that you will see, you will experience. But here's the command, the rest of verse 10. Be still. Be still. You see, that be still isn't God saying, shh, watch what I'm doing. Actually, if you have the NASB, ESV, or the King James, it says, stop striving. That's a truer translation. Stop striving. Stop fighting. Lay down your arms. Stop resisting me. Who's the me? Stop resisting God. You see, this psalm is to Israel. Israel who had a pattern of walking away from God and then being brought back. And he's telling Israel, stop striving against me so that you will experience these things. Yes. You want to know peace in the midst of your enemies? Stop striving against me. Stop resisting me. Amen. Instead, turn to me. Trust me. Be with me. You see, we strive. You see, God's prepared to do all of this for us. And the thing that stops us because we strive with God. Amen. Now, this is written to God's people, the Israelites. This is an Old Testament passage. And it has application in the New. Because guess what? I thought about this as I'm driving the 3,500 miles. That though we are God's children, we strive with God. We resist God. And in doing so, we are robbed of the peace and the comfort that we get when we dwell in His presence. It's not like we open a door and we walk out of it, because you can never truly escape God's presence, but we shut ourselves off from that presence. That perceiving and experiencing and witnessing and knowing when we strive against God, when we fight against God. Now again, I can't testify as to your striving, but I can as to mine. And how do we strive against God? Well, like I said, the Israelites had a cycle of sin. They'd have some rough moments. They'd repent, turn back to God. Things would get right, they'd be delivered, and then they'd fall back into bad habits. Now, we will sin and we will fall. That's our human nature. But what we're talking about is that persistent, unrepentant sin, where we say it's okay, God's grace is sufficient. God's grace doesn't mean we get liberty to continue to do what grieves the Spirit. Amen? Amen. If I was an adulterer before I met Jesus Christ, and then 20 years later, after meeting Christ, I'm still an adulterer, what's changed? Can God bless that? Absolutely not. Will He bless it? Absolutely not. Why? Because it would validate what I'm doing. So God sends a Philistine or a Moabite or a Amalekite to kind of see. The problem with Israel wasn't the Philistines or the Amalekites. They were just vehicles by which God brought His rod of correction. And God has brought some Philistines in my life. Kind of a get back. But we strive against God with these sins. Why did Jesus Christ take flesh? Because there was strife between us and the Father. He took flesh because of strife. And in His work, in His obedience, He shows us this obedience is such a dirty word today. And yet, the truth of the matter is, in the Bible, obedience is free. No longer locked down into sin, no longer locked down into the gutter. We're raised to the heights of the heights because Jesus Christ has redeemed us. And now love wells up within us, and we want to please our Father. Sin would drag us back. The devil would whisper in your ear, oh, come on, just 5 minutes. That's all. When we wrestle with God, then we entertain God. fear, worry. It says it in verse 1, Psalm 46. Fear, where they have no fear. They have no fear. So fear and worry then, when we entertain fear, when we entertain worry, we strive with God. I'll share this with you. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, I'll read it for you. Verse 7 says this: God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And then from 1 John 4:18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. Now, the other day I was reading an article by a pastor, and this message really got hit home. We think the opposite of fear is courage and boldness, but it's not. The Bible says it's love. Who's love? God. So the opposite of fear is God. When we're fearful, we strive against God, because we don't believe God to be in control. And when we don't believe to be God in control, we seek to gain control ourselves. And when we do that, we rob ourselves of peace. When we were driving up to Montana, one of my biggest concerns being a father, you see, my middle child, Alyssa, God bless her, did it right. She went off to a Christian college. It's gated. You have to go through Checkpoint Charlie to get in there. So, she's protected. And she goes to chapel, and she goes to church, and she's growing in her faith. But Bethany, she's like her mom. She's stubborn. Yeah, I know, I'm walking on dangerous grounds. And she went to a secular school. Now, we all know what happens in secular schools, right? Parties, drinking, carrying on. And so, as a father, who very much doesn't want his children to repeat his mistakes, I want her to be surrounded by people of faith. So as we're driving up there, she's thinking, checking into school and getting into classes, I'm thinking, find a church. So we get up there, and it's a day before check-in. It's like, let's drive around Bozeman, see what it's like. It's a college town. And there's a church up there, that's a sister church to our church. And so let's go ahead and check out that church. Let's go there. And so we drive in the parking lot, and it's a large church. I mean, it would fit in our parking lot, and then some. It's a large church. Oh, it is a good church. I think this close to the campus, you got to have a college ministry and all that other good stuff. Someone will pick you up and take you to school. Oh, that's awesome. Let's go and talk. Couldn't find anyone to talk to. And Bethany's like, Dad, it's just too large for me. I don't want a large church. I want a small church. Not good enough for me. So we're at lunch, and I'm thinking, okay, I got to do something. I know one of the missions we support are the Navigators. The Navigators are on the colleges. Maybe the Navigators have a couple that minister at Montana State University. Let me check. And so I go on Google, and lo and behold, the first thing that pops up, MSU Navigators, Montana State University. Awesome, a work of God. God's working to bless me. Mayhem, rape, crime, and that's just the presidential elections. And the rest of it just goes. I mean, honestly, before I left for Montana, the big thing in the news was how a boy, I can't call him a man, a boy got 3 months in prison for raping a young lady behind a dumpster, an unconscious young lady behind a dumpster. And his act of taking her innocence was only worth 3 months. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? As we look out into the world, you see everything that's going on. It makes you wonder, what exactly is going on? Who's in control? Who's running the ship? And when I left for Montana, I did so with all this garbage in my mind. Not only that, but also wrestling with my own demons, so to speak. I was tired, I was worn out. You know, you come to realize when you're on vacation how much you really do need a vacation. And though I can't say that driving 3,500 miles in the space of a week is necessarily a vacation, that when you spend that much time in the car, you have a lot of time to talk to God.
Amen.
And as we were driving Bethany to Montana, Amy and I were extremely conflicted. You see, for those of you who are empty nesters, right, you understand what I'm saying. For those of you that still have little ones at home, you will come to understand what I mean. See, Bethany is the youngest of our 3 children. The other 2 moved out. Corey joined the Marine Corps long ago, got out and stayed in Arizona. My middle child, went to school in Arizona, so she and her brother spent some time together. But Bethany was the completion of my family, so to speak. She was the completion of our biological family. When Amy and I got married, she wanted 6 kids. I wanted 2. We compromised at 3. And Bethany was the answer to her prayer. We didn't feel complete until Bethany was born, and it's like, okay, this is right. This is the completion. No more, no more. And so when she graduated high school last year, we came to understand our role of parents is changing. And it was with a heavy heart that we drove to Montana. It was hard for us. And I love my children all. But Bethany was my shadow. And so, as a father, a very overprotective father, the thought of leaving my child in Bozeman it scared me. So as we're driving to Montana, and I'm wrestling with all these things, and I'm wrestling with what now, what next, and all these other things, we start getting to, it was funny, we drove through Nevada. It wasn't too exciting. Nevada's flat like California. We then began the next stage journey, going to Idaho. Idaho is all cornfields. Amy's upset, 400 miles to drive through Idaho, not one stupid potato scene. And all the cornfields, and we're driving, but then we get into the Tetons, just before you get into Montana. Nothing but pine trees. Gorgeous. And then we get into Montana, and we start making the ascent up the hill that takes you through Yellowstone into Bozeman. Now, I've shared with you in the past, I love the mountains. And it's in the mountains that I feel closest to God. As the wind blows through the pine trees, and I close my eyes, and nothing, maybe it's because the cell phone gets no reception up there. I can hear God. I can hear God as plainly as I'm talking to you now. And so for, maybe if I lived in the mountains, the desert would be that way for me, but it's not. I'm a desert dweller, so I love the mountains. And so we're driving to their contact this morning. And pretending to be Bethany, I go, my name is Bethany Benoit. I want to know about what you've got to go, what you got going on. Would like the fellowship. Here's my phone number, here's my address. And God bless them, they responded. Welcome, Bethany, to MSU. We got this going on the campus, and we'd love to meet you. Come see us tonight. Awesome! Well, then they said, we'll be by this hall. And so we got a map. Where's this hall at? I can't find it. There's nowhere on here. Go back on the Google. Didn't realize that the MSU I saw was not Montana State University, but Missouri State University. And it was at that point God said, are you done? Are you done? Be still, stop striving, let me be God. So I had to, because I learned something there, that her faith had to be her own. You see, it's not her father's faith that saves her, it's her faith in Christ Jesus. And this is what I had to learn in my stubborn way. That we all together walk the same path. We all together walk that narrow road. And we are all walking in the same direction. But then faith is also individual. That my faith must be my own, just as your faith must be yours. And my daughter's faith had to be hers. and the work that I had done, the investment that I had placed in her, that even though I will always remain her dad, there came a time when her Heavenly Father was all she's going to need. And I had to step away. I had to give up control. That meant I had to stop striving with God. And you know what happens? That night, as we're driving off to Utah, leaving our baby child up in Rosemont, they had a club meeting out in the courtyard. And all the churches came out to the booths. And she began talking to all these churches. Got someone to pick her up. She went to church. She said no to one church because she said, Dad, I walk in and it was a concert, not a worship. I don't want that. She finds a small church. Dad, they're talking Jesus Christ. They're talking Him crucified. I love the church, and they picked me up for church. I love them. Oh God, guess what? Or Dad, guess what? As I was walking the campus, there's this sorority, Chi Alpha. They're Christian. And they've asked me to hang out with them. Okay, God, I see you beginning. What I tried to do in my own power, I now see you doing. You see, you're surrounding her. You're protecting her. See, I was afraid because this is a city girl we're talking about, up in the wilds of Montana. This is a girl that while we're driving through Idaho, from the backside here, Dad, that's a funny looking cow. And I'm like, that's because it's a buffalo. And I'm scared to leave her. And God's telling me, I got it. What you think you can do, I can do so much better. Be still. Stop striving. Know that I am God. We're striving so hard against God as Christians. Every day we have to ask ourselves, what is it today, Lord, that I'm fighting with you against, that you're trying to get me to do in my life, and I keep telling you no, or I keep telling you wait, or I keep telling you I can do it better. Where am I striving? I know God wants to supernaturally pour Himself out. What am I doing, Lord, that prevents you from doing that in this area of my life? So that I can stop doing that. Okay? As Christ said to Paul, stop kicking against the goats. And so that way I can be blessed. I can have peace. That I can see with my spiritual eyes better than with my material eyes. God's doing in the world today. And have peace. Amen? Amen. Well, that's a little road lesson I learned on the way to and from Montana. Be still and know that I'm God. It's a lesson that from time to time, though it's something we've heard since we were baby Christians, it's a lesson that we need to be reminded of from time to time to real. Because even mature Christians need to know when to mellow out, when to chill out, right? Amen? Amen. Let's go to our heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we have with you and with each other. And Lord, I pray for your hand of blessing upon my brothers and sisters here. That in the day further contact us for them. And pretending to be Bethany, I go, my name is Bethany Benoit. I want to know about what you've got to go.